everyone. Hennessy's letting me know that her Zoom has decided to freeze on her again, so she's apologetic. But I think if folks can, if you would like to come off, uh, come on camera, and I am going to be helping run the meeting so that Hennessy can really focus on agenda, sorry, not agenda, but note taking and other aspects of her role. She'll come on for some of the agenda items. Today, we're going to mostly focus on the BPS team, who are going to be talking more about curriculum. But before we get into that, our first order is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. And I'm looking for a motion to, if there isn't any comments, or if anyone has comments, a motion to approve.
I move that we approve.
Okay, thank you. Negative second. Kristen, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor? Just raise your hand. Okay. So that's been passed. I'm going to give Hennessy 10 seconds to get in while I write down folks' names. All right. And I'm looking around the E room at who's here. Oh, she said if you want to hold off on approving the minutes because they were uploaded late, but I think we've already kind of went past that. I'm going to let folks in. I don't know how Hennessy does this. Here we go. Here comes everybody else. Hennessy's coming back. Everyone gets joined in. Okay, and I'm not sure who Hennessy has been speaking to. I see Dr. Headley Mitchell's here for the BPS component, and I'd like to open the floor to the BPS team if you're here and ready to go.
Thanks, Joe. I'll let you know who's here with us. Hi, everyone. Dr. Angela Headley Mitchell, Executive Director of Humanities for the Boston Public Schools. I'm here and I'm joined by Dr. John Gould, who is Program Director for History and Social Science for the high school, and Caitlin Tarosian, who is our Program Director for our middle school grades and leads some of our civics work. They're here to talk about the work that they do in conjunction with some of the partners that we have here in Boston, some of the work they've done with place-based learning and some of the work they've done with curriculum, and then open it up to how we could partner more with some of the organizations that are part of this commission to help with not only the commemoration efforts, but also to expand students' knowledge about their own communities historically. So I will open it up to John and Caitlin to kind of talk about what they do and what they've done.
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Headley Mitchell. I'm grateful, and thanks for having us here today. And my partner, Caitlin Tassarian, who's a great resource for me. I want to thank her as well. I'm going to take the lead initially, and then I'll hand it off to my partners. But my colleagues and I, the BPS History Program Directors, are excited at the opportunity to collaborate with the Boston Commemoration Commission. We relish the opportunity to support the upcoming historical anniversaries, which includes the United States 250th anniversary in 2026, the 400th anniversary of the founding of the city of Boston in 2030, and other significant historical anniversaries for our local communities to tell the full range of our history, including the struggles and accomplishments of Boston's communities who are too often left out of the official narrative. Also, with my colleagues, we have made a concerted effort to especially after COVID, to reintroduce ourselves to different historical organizations, the Boston Athenaeum, the Mass Historical Society. I've also had the pleasure of visiting the Colonial Society on a variety of events. And then we've gone to the Constitution Museum to hold a retreat. We've gone to the Edward M. Kennedy Center to hold a retreat, and we are wide open to establishing those relationships with other historical organizations. So the question that I kind of have to wrestle with, and we all do. How can organizations partner with the Boston Public Schools? First off, you can reach out to me or any of my colleagues, Jay Gould at the bostonpublicschools.org. We've also made a concerted effort to partner with local colleges to have mini PDs for our teachers. This includes the Boston College. This includes UMass Boston, as well as the University of Cambridge out of England, where we've had scholarly professionals speak to our teachers, and we're open to those partnerships. We can collaborate to align your resources with the appropriate grade level and social studies standards. For instance, the history program director can help you connect the Boston commemoration opportunities and resources to the 4th and 5th grade students, as well as US1 high school students. And we can bring local neighborhood histories as it relates to our pacing guide and curriculum frameworks to the classroom. And we're wide open to suggestions. Dr. Headley Mitchell, Ms. T, did I miss anything?
No, and one of the things that we really are focused on is place-based learning opportunities for our students. A lot of times, there's so much rich history in Boston that we have, and our students are not aware of it or that it's even in their backyard. As I know, Joe, you presented last time about like the history of the school buildings in which the students are, the communities in which these schools are in. We really are, since COVID, really try to revamp what we had in regards to place-based learning, whether it's a opportunity that you can walk to, if there needs to be buses provided. That's a little more challenging situation because we used to have grant funding that supported that. Sometimes organizations will support us with that, or even if they can take the T. So we are really in tune with that. And then with our curriculum pacing guides, which we can share with you, we try to organize like where there are curate materials that can supplement some of the curriculum that we do have. So we do have, like I said last time, high quality instructional materials that we provide our teachers, that we provide professional learning on, but we always look for opportunities to supplement that to make sure that our students are getting localized history and see that in front and see themselves in the history that they're learning. So that's been a really big movement of the department to make sure that all communities are represented in the historical record that students are seeing. Other partners, other organizations and museums we've visited, the African Meeting House, Maporium, Leventhal, Map Center, that we've recently had meetings with. Am I forgetting anyone?
Athenaeum.
Athenaeum, West End.
Also,
Mhm.
just to add to that, Angela, we brought in the Mass Historical Society to one of our schools because they are a champion of National History Day. And I'm working with Paula Sampson, or we're working with Paula Sampson from the Mass Historical Society to promote National History Day. We're bringing the Athenaeum into that. We actually brought her in to speak to teachers about this. So everything's on the table in terms of these partnerships, and we're open to that. Okay. And that's a hard example of what we can do for you as well.
And sometimes we look towards particular grade levels, experiences for like our younger learners, because we're champions of K to 12. It's not just a high school effort, but how we have opportunities for our youngest learners. But if there's something that's particular, like when I was working with the Dillaway House, we looked at they used to do work with younger learners, but we started to look at what can we do for our middle school students. So if there's like particular grade levels, we like to focus on and like make that like a key place-based opportunity for a particular grade. So every student in Boston would have an opportunity to go to these different sites because we'd be part of their learning each year. Caitlin, I'm
Hi,
sorry.
good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, no, it's so nice to see everyone. I just stepped out of a school. Glad to see you all. And just the only thing I have to add is that we love being able to truly partner. So elevating our partners and making sure the programming that you do is brought to not just the teachers, but also to families. So we love learning more and more about what's going on with your programming and then making sure that we're sharing that out to really highlight all this good work that's being done in Boston.
Great, thank you so much. I wanted to give a moment to see if anybody has any questions right off the bat. Is anybody? I have a couple here, but I don't want to jump in right away.
Joe, I put the pacing guide in the discussion chat, and if
Mhm.
anyone wants any copies of that or any other tools we use or references we have, just have them reach out to me, John Gould at bostonpublicschools.org.
That's great.
That
Thank
was
you.
my first question, actually, Don. Hi, I'm Jordana McCanny, and I run the archives at Northeastern University. And they're not open. So should we all the documents in the guide we don't have access to.
Oh,
Okay, I will give you access right now. I apologize for that.
Okay,
Uh,
so
would it help for me to share my screen?
the document itself we can get to, but not the
Oh,
individual.
got it.
Because I'm lucky enough to have two BPS kids at the moment. One's actually sitting in my office in 7th and 9th grade.
mhm,
So I'm pretty familiar with what with the younger kids.
Sure.
Yeah, and very, of course, very interested in hosting uh you know, kids of all ages into our archives. We've worked with several different schools in the past, mostly high schools. But in particular with Dr.
Sure.
Madsen, who've brought their kids over to do some learning and deep research in archives, which has been super fun for us.
Excellent. And I'm
So
just
yeah,
getting that to you now. Northeastern's a great school. I got 2 degrees from there, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
I just opened up access. I'm going a grade at a time, so you'll be able to view.
Great.
So doing
Thank
that.
you, Angel.
I also went to Northeastern, but just for 1 degree.
Double Husky.
I had a question about our legislation really states bluntly curriculum development, and I guess what I'm asking, what one of my biggest questions is that actually where the need is? Because it sounds more of an experience based um opportunity is what the BPS is not necessarily looking for, but definitely has done. Where do you feel your greatest needs are from us? Where can we help the most? Is it through curriculum development? Is it through teacher engagement? Is it through space-based learning at our institutions? Is it us coming to you? Um, is it us providing new information and opportunities within the framework of of the pacing guide? Where do you really see us being most helpful to you?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's almost actually all those pieces you said, Joe. Because they're the professional learning 100%, because I think, our teachers come in with certain expertise, but we're also trying to grow that as they develop in the profession. So we've really honed in on content development for our teachers. So, you come in, you know US history, but you might not know about a particular aspect of it. But we found that, like, hearing from experts, hearing from folks like you, like, it's been really exciting for teachers, and giving them that agency to go find, like, have the opportunity to engage with that and then bring that to the classroom. So, super important for us. And I think the curriculum, I'll just talk about the curriculum piece. We have HQIM, but we're always looking to, like, I think, like, make it more Boston. So as much as possible that we could partner and bring that more to life for our students, and how much better to learn about it and then see it. I think it's all connected. But a lot of times we have, like, oh, here's some curriculum resource, but then the teachers don't get to sit and like digest it themselves. And I think that's, like, really important that we're really trying to do. And I know John and Caitlin have really had some speaking series and some, like, professional development that the department has developed, K-12 for teachers to kind of build that. So I have to switch off to my phone, but I'll still be here.
Thank you. Following up on the curriculum question, does not being related to teaching in any aspects of my job other than loving teachers, who develops curriculum? did the teachers develop the curriculum for their classroom? Does the social studies department develop the curriculum with the teachers? Is it more top down, bottom up? Like where is that happening? And are we really there to support the teachers teaching students? We teach the teachers develop the curriculum and teach the students, or is it really more involved with like creating curriculum and then showing the teachers how to use that?
So in Boston previously, it was very autonomous in regards to curriculum. And Boston made a move with when Desi started talking about takeover, of having high quality instructional materials that are centrally reviewed, have gone through the race equity protocols, and have been noted for through ed reports or curate as a grade level, meeting grade level standard. And what happened with that, and social studies has been a little late to the game because it was not an MCAS involved at that point. Well, no MCAS, well, that's a whole nother discussion for another day, but that we started when my predecessor, who I worked with, Natasha Scott, was here, working with reviewing curricula across the grade bands. So what we have now is some standard like curricula that we want everyone to engage with. Now, we also have supplemental curriculum. And at the high school level, this is a little more, because I know as high school people, we're very protective of what we've amassed over time. And that's been the hardest space to kind of break into. We have a curriculum that we have reviewed. We're in the process of piloting. So high school is a little different, where that we have open source, like I'm going to say SHEG. It's not SHEG. Why do I always say that?
Because it was SHEG for so long, it's DIG.
DIG,
Digital
right?
Inquiry Group. Yeah.
Digital Inquiry Group. We have Facing History in Ourselves. We have Zen Project. Like we have different resources that we put out there for teachers that go DBQ project that go along with the SAVIS HQIM. We don't have a curriculum writing team centrally. And I feel that, so that's a challenge. Like some other big cities have curriculum, like New York has a curriculum writing team, right? That writes and confers with university professors. I feel that we have a lot of autonomies that happen in the district, and we're really trying to get our students to we make sure we have grade level experiences for all our students. So we're moving towards, this is the HQIM, but we're here to listen to what you have. And if it has to go through a process in order to become approved. History hasn't gone through that yet. ELA was our first round with that. And anyone who has curriculum that's not what the department has put forth, then it has to go through a process. So I say all that to say, we're trying to move it so that it's not top in the sense of like, here's what we approve and this is what we'll have professional learning on, but we're ready and listening to like all the ideas that our teachers have to bring forward in regards to curriculum, and be able to review that to make sure we're looking at the 7 forms of bias in relation to the things we're looking at, our stories marginalized, all these things that I think we are able to do as a district department that sometimes doesn't happen necessarily at all the school materials. So, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, do you want me to share that visual that Caitlin made up, the single slide?
That's good. Thank you, John.
Okay. You're welcome. Can you see that right now, everybody? My colleague, Caitlin, who's on here, this really helped me, being an outsider coming on 2 years ago, it really helped me understand, and maybe this will, it will frame and contextualize exactly what Angela's saying. So if you look up on the top half, you see Discovering Justice, K-4, Democratic Knowledge Project, grade 8, Impact Social Studies, grades 4 and 5, Network 6 through 8, Investigating History 5 through 7, and then SAVIS 9 through 12. Down below that, in every high schools had an opportunity to consider Savas as 9 through 12. And then we have what we call supplemental curriculum, which is primary source K through 12, DBQ project 3 through 12, digital inquiry group 6 through 12, iCivics 6 through 12, K through 6, open social studies, and then facing history and ourselves 6 through 12. This combined with the inquiry model serves students very well, and it empowers teachers. Teachers are asked to subscribe to this HQIM because it goes through a vetting process. And everyone in this conversation, I'm 28 years in education. I've taught on the college level. This is my second year in Boston, and this is by far the most progressive organization I've been a part of. I would say even university or college level, and the most informed curriculum options to empower teachers. And this documents everything, and I give credit to my colleagues for developing this.
And it's not exhaustive as well. We have like Library of Congress, right? Those are that we encourage our teachers to use, but this is just some, it exemplifies of what we're doing, making sure that there is equity in instruction, and that students across the district are able to access grade level text, whatever classroom they're in whatever school.
Jordana?
So does this mean, so I'm familiar with most of these resources. Does this mean that they, so they have access to PDPs for this, or does it mean that they have access to like digital archives worth of primary source material? What are these, what does access to these organizations and their resources mean for BPS teachers? And that's like, I'm a parent, but I don't know nothing about teaching. So, so I just unfamiliar.
No, these are great questions. So when you say PDPs, do you mean like their professional development? They have access to professional development? That's a
Yeah.
great question. Yes. So what we are doing and continuing to build, as Angela gave some context, I think in the previous meeting, we're a newer team, a team of 5. And what we want to ensure that we're doing is that we're not just handing teachers resources, that we're providing them the professional learning in a continuum from year to year that helps them deepen their knowledge and expertise within the resources that they're using. So for example, with DBQ, we have the CEO and author of that curriculum come into Boston. He's come twice already this year to provide educators with a deeper dive into how to use those resources to maximize the impact. So teachers can receive PDPs from attending these professional learning. And we do encourage that all educators engage with the professional learning associated with the curriculum that they're choosing to use.
In addition to that, Caitlin, I'm coordinating a bit professional development right now with between Savas and Madison Park and a teacher at Tech Boston to basically brush up on Savas and to work on that digital board to give them feedback. And we have 4 pilot schools right now in Boston that subscribe to Savas, and we're providing that type of professional development. And that's just one example.
And in regards to K2 to 3, we've done a different model in which in which teachers get graduate, which is called an advanced ladder credit, which is a graduate credit within the Boston public school system. It's not transferable outside, but it gives teachers a credit that is counted towards increasing salary lane. And that's been really successful for any long-term learning. So anything over 12 hours, teachers have to produce a product. We've done that with the Children Discovering Justice curriculum. And we've had about 40 plus teachers go through that cohort as individuals. And we've had whole schools, 3 whole schools go through that learning as well. So we really try to make it a wraparound situation. So instead of just here's a resource, but here's a resource, here's an opportunity to learn more, and here's also a learning community of other teachers who are learning alongside with you.
Kayla noted in the chat that she thinks that everyone on this call could really contribute to some DBQs. I couldn't agree more and welcome that. invitation. And when we think about the commemoration, I think that would be that makes the learning come alive when we have local primary resources that students can dig into, because that also helps students really take pride in their own communities, in their own neighborhoods, and understand the relevance of this commemoration to them in the spaces that they're in and that they walk through every single day. So that could be some really exciting work we could engage in, for sure.
I don't know how many people know what a DBQ is, but I went to Latin
Googling
school,
like
so that
crazy.
was it's document-based question. I think it still stands for the same thing, but I went to Latin school and took AP history classes, so DBQs were like my life for junior and senior year, but it's kind of like what got me interested in archives because I didn't really know what primary source materials were and who was in charge of keeping them and didn't know what an archivist even was until I was introduced to DBQs. So as an archivist, I think we could definitely, like this group, other archivists here, even Joe with, photos of artifacts, um, could definitely contribute in that way.
Kayla, thank you for sharing. I was just sharing with a colleague today that I was in Jamaica Plain and or Roslindale, and I had to stop because I went by a cemetery and I saw a structure made out of Civil War cannons, and I just had to stop and look at this and compare notes and look at the Civil War cemetery. And it was in the middle of my day, and it was just it took me to another place, much like you talked about being an archivist. And as a Northeastern student, I did co-ops at the Athenaeum, the State Archives, the Massachusetts Historical Society, and it fascinates me. And every day, and my colleagues hear this ad nauseum, this is such a great job for me. And I love it, and I feel very fulfilled because every day there's something new, something different. And just like you allude to, and I want to share this with our students to tell you the truth. And I'm wide open, as are my colleagues, to forming those partnerships.
We have an outreach archivist here on staff that we have used that position in the past to go to Boston Public High Schools, mostly high schools, but I mean, I think we could be open to other places, especially we're a City of Boston department. We should be helping other City of Boston departments. So we're always available for that, even if it's not in the context of this commission.
Yeah, that'd be great. And thank you.
I have another question, and again, it's a dumb question, but what do you think? So the legislation was built around saying, in our unit, saying timelines, curricula, and archives, and the curricula piece is what I don't understand is there a perception that BPS in the legislature, like the people who are building the legislation, is there a perception that BPS doesn't do enough to talk about Boston history specifically? Or, so I'm not sure, because it seems, I mean, is that, or is it, and maybe Joe could answer this question more than I can, is it a matter of the commission wants us to help support BPS in talking about commemoration history or the things that we're commemorating via?
Hennessy take this one.
Yeah, I can read what it said the goals were. It says here, planning content for exhibits, blah blah blah, and it also wants for those things to educate participants on the diverse histories of Boston, determining how to save, process, and highlight Boston's rich archival resources, including through digital archives, and incorporating archival history and commemorative activities into the Boston Public School curriculum. So I think they're not saying that there's no Boston history in
No
that,
one's saying that. Yeah.
but it does seem like they want us to expand the way that BPS interacts with archives. And incorporate more commemorative, whatever, we identify commemorative activities as meaning, the BPS and us. That's something that we can talk through, but yeah, so it's the expansion of archival resources, digital archives, and putting these things infusing them into the curriculum.
And let me just say, both last year and this year, like I built a partnership with Lou Finfer, and we did a learning walk on desegregation and busing. I think twice specifically, partnering with him and Boston Public School teachers and making them aware that, hey, there's an opportunity. We can do student field trips here. I also, one of my teachers wanted to hire Boston by Foot. I said, you don't need to do that. Hire me. She wanted something to incorporate civil rights in sports. And last year, and I called the New England Sports Museum, and they waived the fee for our students. And we've started off with the Red Auerbach statue, went to the Bill Russell statue, and then went to the museum and literally talked that up and had students finish at the New England Sports Museum. And we are always, I can just point to our track record. We literally, if there's an opportunity out there, we don't hesitate to jump on it, really. So we're wide open for this, I believe.
I think it's an access issue too. Like part of our job is to connect educators so they have access to things like an archive. Educators do about 75,000 things a minute. And we want to make sure that educators, with the limited amount of planning time that they have, they know how to access things, because it's not a will, right? And it's not their skill, it's access. So if they don't know something's out there, it's really hard to find. So that's part of our job as program directors, to let them know, hey, by the way, these archives exist. Here's how we access them. If you want students to go there, here's the person you talk to. Here's the funding that's available for buses. That takes a huge lift off of their shoulders. And that's part of our responsibility as program directors, to make sure our educators have access to all these great resources you all have. I think that's part of our role.
Do you have a list that you could share with us that you point teachers towards for local resources that teachers can access?
Yeah, we have a living document that's under development, and we also have the website that's under development. And we can share that with you for sure, of who we're partnering with, the work we're doing. But again, we're trying to build this trajectory of learning so that if someone goes to visit Northeastern to do X, Y, and Z in 5th grade, that they're able to go back and do that again for something else. Because we want students to feel like every public building, that every like that it's theirs, that they're a part of that, and that they have ownership in it. And just like Kayla so beautifully said about her experience in high school, I mean, that's a dream for us, right? That students can feel connected to this work.
Yes, of course. I think, so I was lucky enough to work with Josue Sakata, who used to work for Natasha Scott back in the day in social studies. And we built a curriculum around school desegregation. He built a curriculum around school desegregation based on a whole bunch of digitized resources that we produced essentially for the 40th anniversary of school desegregation. And of course, this year is the 50th year. And and the website is now gone. Now this was like 10 years ago. So the resources are still there, but the curriculum is not. And I think that after working with him for some time, I realized that I think that there's like a few things that are barriers to BPS kids heading to archives. And one, and I think it's a language barrier mostly, and also funding one, of course, and time, adding in. One is sometimes we don't know what's interesting to kids. So for example, and so thinking about, I have 57,000 digitized objects, and a lot of them have to do with civil rights work in Boston. And so then there's this other element of 50, okay, I'm not going to give some teacher and say like, oh, you're interested in this, like sort through all of these things. And so these DBQs around, here are 6 different objects that you might want to put into your curriculum. you know, it's hard for us as archivists to be able to come up with those things that will be used because we're not kid experts, right? And then I think that there's another piece of it is that not all archivists are trained in the kind of anti-bias, really excellent anti-bias work that you do. And so it's hard for a set of BPS kids to go into an archive where none of the people in the archive reflect that. So I think that, so I don't know if this is just sort of like some thoughts that I gathered up after working with Josue on this piece. And then of course echoing what Caitlin you were talking about with the like the buses, buses are so expensive for schools, like unless and archives, can archives pay for buses? I don't I could say nobody at Northeastern is going to pay for a bus. But on the other hand, but and yeah, so and then thinking about how teachers find out about us. So I know that Chris, Dr. Madsen at O'Brien found out about us when he was working at the EMK and, and saw something that I wrote on the internet. And then he didn't know about all of this desegregation history. So it was like this sort of individual connection that was, so, this sort of idea of the resource guide for, you can go to Northeastern, you can bring your class to Northeastern Archives, you just email this person, and we're happy to take anybody. And also having a better sense about, we teach high school kids all the time, but I wouldn't know what to do with a sixth grader or a fourth grader in order to interpret the hard histories appropriately and in an age appropriate way, which are the things that we collect. So maybe this is too much of a speech. But anyway, so those are the things that I've learned from helping, trying to be a resource for teachers. Oh, and we did show up at a BTU day, like education, where we taught teachers about using the curriculum that BPS Social Studies had put together, that Josue had put together, which was really, really interesting. But, is there a way that we as archivists could just be there every year, right? Like talking about something new, talking about how archaeology has got this great resource, and the Leventhal Center, loves bringing kids in, all of those things. Yeah. So anyway, just thinking about those things. And yes, we were very, very highly, we talked with Lou all the time. And my colleague Molly Brown was the one who digitized and made all of the resources available for the BPL, the exhibit in the BPL around 50 years of busing. Most of the archives actually came originally from us.
So I would just say, in regards to the DSEG piece, I teach a course in the Boston Public Schools on DSEG.
Wonderful.
To all new teachers. I've been doing that for the last 6 years. I was part of the 40-year after. I was working in BPS at the time, but what we did was work with Lou Finfer and come up with this resource guide for teachers that I've been doing PDs with teachers about. And I was also part of the work with Facing History and Ourselves in regards to their 50 years after busing. So that work continues through Boston.
Wonderful.
In regards to that. We're here to help be a guide for our younger students. I think if you share the resources and opportunities with us, we have program directors who are specific to K2 to 5. And that's humanities across, because some of our schools, they might not have a standalone social studies course, but they have opportunities through their ELA curriculum to engage through modules with historical content. So we work across ELA and history in our younger grades. So we're happy to, one thing that I think folks came to terms with and during the pandemic, when we were like, okay, we can't just do ELA and math for 6 hours on Zoom. and we're going to engage kids with other content, is that our 5-year-olds are very ready to have these in-depth conversations about topics around race, marginalization, equity, justice. So I think we have folks who can help make that accessible to students. It might not be a field trip to an archive, that may be a little much for a younger student, but it might be coming into the classroom and sharing experiences. We have like the MFA does talk. Sometimes you might not be able to come to the MFA, but they do walks through the galleries with students on Zoom. So how to bring that to students across the city when buses and transportation is a hindrance. So I tried to help build a team that has expertise across all these grade levels to help see how to make it accessible across various grade levels and opportunities for our students. So we're here to partner with that to help.
Dr. Headley Mitchell, thank you so much for sharing this with me. And also, I spy Northeastern in there and a little website that we built, which is fantastic. So yeah, all this is really wonderful. And so, to some degree, I guess one of the things that I was thinking about is this sort of idea of the optics coming from the legislature. Is it just a matter of they don't see these things, right? Like these are things that are already happening, but are they visible in City Hall? And is that something that we could help you guys raise awareness of? And that's just something I don't know, but it might be for our group, that might be a helpful thing for us to do, is to say, well, here's what BPS is already doing, right? Let's talk about where we can improve, just both of us together.
Yeah. I think that we're going to talk a little bit about it later, but Hennessy has a 6-month report due. And that's something that can be maybe added to that, because Hennessy need to add more stuff to that. But that kind of feedback. The thing I'm kind of hearing too. Well, one of the challenges that we've had as a subcommittee is, and I think it's all 3 of the subcommittees, is that with the lack of resources to support all of the work that we're trying to accomplish, it's kind of becoming something that we are expected to produce the things, and none of us have the capacity for that. We can definitely compile. So I think that it sounds like this is that BPS could use us compiling together our own individual raw data, essentially, not all of the data, but like what we contain, and share that upwards with the BPS. But also some of us have DPQs, some of us have programming, both on site at our places, but also travel programming to make sure that you are all aware of that. But then also making sure that the BPS teams have the ability to kind of access our resources to develop things from that too as well. And this is all starting to sound similar to some of the like basic database stuff that we've been all talking about, compiling the compilers, and I'm thinking that we hadn't talked about this before, but I'm wondering about some of the kind of work that we were talking about with the Boston Public Library, with not the clearinghouse, but like the center, whatever we're calling it now, to have a curriculum component of that, because I can imagine that someone's going to go into that resource thinking I want to research a specific thing, but aren't necessarily, but there could also be a teacher that's coming in to say, I want to find resources for my 3rd graders. And that could really branch out at a totally different level. And I'm even thinking about the map, Hennessy, that you've been working on with Leventhal, that map could really also have a curriculum tie-in, that it's not just the Shirley Eustace house, it's a 3rd grade, 7th grade, and high school curriculum connection as well. I think that that's something that we can definitely work on categorizing, labeling, compiling in a way that's a little bit less, okay, I'll do 3 DBQs, Jordana's going to do 5, Kristen's going to do school desegregation, and Dory's going to reinvent the public library. So like that kind of stuff. But but I think that that's something that we can definitely do. And if that sounds like what something the VPS team could use, I think that's something we can really work on doing, because it's less creating from scratch and more making sure it's accessible to the professional teachers and the folks that help the teachers.
Right.
And Joe, to that end, I put in the chat just an invitation. If someone wants to make themselves known to Boston school teachers right now, I'm working on it's my turn to do the newsletter for February 1st. If you want to get me a little bit of a little, write up, I'll include that, and we can do that we do that like every 2 months. So if you want to get that information to us, we will share that out. Okay.
I just thought of something.
Joe, what?
Sorry. What if it was
No,
like
that's fine.
meet the archivist? Like teachers have an opportunity to meet you all in your spaces and like learn a little bit more about the work. And then kind of learn it for themselves. It just came to me when I was thinking about the newsletter.
I love that. I've worked on several different projects where I call it the friendly neighborhood librarian or the friendly neighborhood archivist, where like, sometimes you just need to know that there's actually a person that, you trust on the other end of the line or on the other end of the Zoom. And, yeah. And archivists are stuck in basements a lot of the time. And so we don't necessarily get out enough to just like hang around. So yeah, I love that idea. We're planning on doing archives crawl. There's a little ad hoc group called Boston Archives Meetup, and we did one last year. And we would love to invite teachers on that. Because it was just a few institutions signed up to do it last year, but we love to introduce ourselves in that way, in a very sort of like low key, just like show up kind of way. And maybe one of these years we can have Lou Finford's bus bring everyone around, because he bought
That
a
sounds
bus.
exciting.
He's making a mobile museum, so that's another opportunity for us to show our wares as well. So yeah,
Joe, would it be helpful to start small and think about the excuse me, Giordana, to think about the commemoration, and if we develop some sort of helpful doc where you could put these resources in, instead of like starting with all of everything, to narrow in on the commemoration, and then we can have this menu for educators. Yes, we have one DBQ here. Yes, we have a primary source here that can be used for X, Y, and Z. Here's a place-based experience for the commemoration. One page where links can be put in, and we could polish it up and just try it to start, meet again, get some feedback from you all on like, yeah, was this process helpful? Great. Where can we look to next? What grade levels, what's of interest? So that way we can do a really good job on the BPS end of doing justice to the works you all have.
Sounds great. I think that would be a nice working meeting for all of us, to have like a real targeted meeting, one of these subcommittee meetings where we're showing up with brainstorming and a list of ideas, and we put it all together into that document just there and get it done. That could be really beneficial for everybody, and give us something really tactile to actually do in these meetings. I think a lot of this is kind of frustrating sometimes to feel like we can talk about stuff, we can complain about some things, and then not feel like we're doing a lot at the other end of it. And I know I feel that way. And that would be really great to have something to really focus on that can then be immediately implemented. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
I wanted to add that, the 6-month report that we're working on, not much has changed in these 6 months and in the last one. So really what I've been doing is looking at the goals that we set in our first 6 months and seeing what we need to do this successfully in terms of collaboration, like what organizations and what departments in the city, and if we need budget, if we need staff, that's something that I think we should thoroughly review. For the most part, it's what we've been talking about like this clearinghouse database, so that you know where to start once it's been compiled, and then you can go from there. Other stuff was, of course, like archives, collections, digitizing archival resources, which it's not you guys, it's a larger project. Language access is one that we've been talking about, and other accessibility accommodations. And then what we also have is like museum curations, BPL exhibits, BPS curriculum, and internships. And I was actually talking to the one of the other subcommittees, events, exhibits, and trails. And we are currently talking about what a community-based process would look like for the creation of trails in neighborhoods. And we think that the research, the primary source, like looking through and doing and process of this will take a very long time. And that this is a potential for internships for high school students who are interested in doing that kind of research and helping and then getting there, getting to be a part of a larger output or product of the commemorative process. Hopefully, these are things that the other subcommittees are thinking about.
Our best idea, I don't know if we talked about this while I had to step out for a sec, was to make a map with various different historical resources around each of the schools. So for example, I'm in East Boston, and my kids went to a school where there's 3 commemorative plaques about the synagogues that used to be on like right next to the school. And so wouldn't it be so interesting for the kids at that school to like learn about the synagogues? There's a plaque, here's a picture of it from Digital Commonwealth, like creating a DBQ just for something that is like literally right next door. And, and in Boston, that's kind of easy because there's always something historical right next door to every single school ever. We just need to unearth it and, make some sort of map. So again, that's like Hennessy said, that's a ton of work. But on the other hand, if we just created one resource per school, then that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, and I'll add that the Leventhal Map Center has already given us a grant and aid and has set aside a chunk of hours. But the project that we have as it exists is it's like historic houses that have an education team that you can walk into. And I'm realizing that there's not that many. A lot of historic houses are privately owned. But I mean, I'd have to check in with the Leventhal Map Center and see if they're open to me expanding the project a little bit, and including things like monuments and markers and other different types of like place-based learning that aren't just historic houses. But we'll see what they say.
I think there's a value to like a human clearinghouse too, where compiling all of our contact informations, the broader emails for institutions, so that if the BPS curriculum folks or teachers themselves are looking for something, either place-based or a document or something, they can send a blast email to everybody and just be like, does anybody have anything about Civil War era in Boston? Does anybody have, a place that we can go to on the west side of West Roxbury that has something to do with this topic or can suggest something? Like that kind of stuff I think could be really helpful for us to kind of either suggest things that we already have or realize where the demands are. Because there's no point in us developing stuff that isn't ever wanted or needed, even if we think it's a really cool project. But there's also, I think there's going to be things that we won't think of that teachers are going to need and want, but we will be able to respond to pretty easily, because I think we've covered just about most topics, especially in Boston, just within the folks that are on this subcommittee. And there's a lot of folks that aren't in the meeting right now that I think cover a lot more ground. And the committee as a whole, or the commission as a whole, is incredible. The number and the folks that are on this group. So it could be really helpful to, as a resource going the other way too, to just be like, email this group and somebody will probably get back to you. Or 17 of us will get back to you probably, with offers of things that could be used.
That's a really good point too. And Genesis, you were talking about in 6 months, not much has happened. And okay, but you know what? With education, good stuff does take time. So even if we don't have every school with what if we start again small, one school or one neighborhood, we pilot it with a school, get feedback, Joe, to your point, from the teachers and then, we expand over time, like good teaching materials, it takes time. And sometimes going small first and trying one school or two schools can really actually make things go faster because we get that impact right away from teachers and say, oh, here's what we can do for next time. Here's the adjustments we can make. And I think on the BPS end, it's our job to make sure we have these touch points with you set up, right? And that we're staying on top of it and that we're connecting you with teachers and putting you in spaces to elevate the work.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
We talked briefly about the transportation issues, just to help us understand kind of the full scope of it. Is it really just so complicated that we should not be planning to need to have folks come to us via a bus? Is that the reality essentially, or is it simple or complicated enough to talk about, just so we can understand? Because I know I always assume that folks can't come to West Roxbury because of the bus situation. For instance, I'm out in the same building as the city archives, but then we could come to them. But I don't know if that's the reality of the situation.
I think Angela might be able to best speak to this. She has a lot of institutional knowledge. I have some knowledge about transportation, but I think, Angela, you could speak better to it than me.
We once had yellow school bus grants that schools would write and be funded for school bus. The school bus rollout right now is like $850. And it's tough getting BPS buses because they do 2 runs of dropping students off in the morning and then have to go back in the afternoon. So their time is limited. A lot of school bus trips that we have is because the partner we're working with has written grants that fund the school buses. The T can be useful with older kids. It's hard to budget buses. It's a tough budget season, and a lot of times schools are not going to, the school my kids go to, they utilize fundraising to do buses for classes. We used to have buses in our department as an allocation, but we took that away when we needed to buy more online curricular resources for licenses. So like sub money, we used to have sub money, but there's no subs, so we don't put money towards subs. So that's kind of hard because there's no one who wants to sub in the school. So I mean, I think we can talk about it. I think we could strategize and figure out how we could get students out there. I'm always willing to write a grant. I write grants for DESE grants for civics. I mean, we could work in something for a grant that we write to fund buses and put the opportunity out to schools who would want to utilize it. It's been tough. And
Well,
there's
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It just sounds like as a committee, we should be really focusing on, as Hennessy's already been doing, focusing on the resources around schools and digital opportunities and access, and visiting the other way around. The institution visits the school. That sounds like the 3 things that are really going to be most useful without addition, because nobody needs to write extra grants. We're all writing them and we don't need to add more to anyone's pile. But as a committee, we can definitely be really focusing on those aspects of it and trying to find those kinds of resources for people. And do you think it would be helpful for part of our 6-month thing to also be kind of not a criticism, but more like a nuancing version of the legislation, to say, like, you wanted us to do curriculum. We've reached out to the BPS. We're not going to be writing curriculum necessarily, but here's the other things that we will be doing to kind of satisfy that idea. Because it's not as easy as saying, write a timeline, write a curriculum, do curriculum with BPS. just that kind of stuff that we can say like, yeah, you're not necessarily seeing these results because you're expecting something that is either not producible or is either a very tiny project or a project that would never get done within the time frame of the commission, which is like 30 years. So, but I feel like we could really provide some clear or feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that it's a great opportunity, especially with that ordinance that's being reviewed now by city councilors. It's not slated to go up for a vote in January, I don't think, since it's being reviewed now. But if they put up, the ordinance to change it up in February, we can use this report as part of that packet, right? It's not just the ordinance change, but we would like you to read the 6-month report to see why we're asking for these changes and see what else this means for us longer term, like the things that we need to function. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it would be really nice to, as a next step for this, I don't know what everyone else wants to suggest, but I was going to put on the table, if the BPS team could provide us with that kind of commemoration blueprint thing that we can kind of build from, that I think would be a really great place to start as like an internal pilot project. Just so we can kind of see what it looks like. If that can get to Hennessy and then she can distribute it. John, I know you asked for emails. I actually don't have access to the full list of emails. So Hennessy, I'm
Yeah,
going to put that on your pile. Sorry.
yeah, no worries.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
But would that be
Thank you.
something?
Yeah.
I appreciate you getting those to me in some way, shape, or form, and I will reach out to everyone and share this out with the teachers so they know you're all a resource. And thank you, Joe.
Tennessee doing this stuff. I'm just helping run the meeting for her. Yeah, is there anything else that we wanted to kind of talk about for like not necessarily deliverables, but next steps? Don't think we're anywhere close to deliverable yet.
No, I mean, I've been taking notes, so I can look through this. I know a couple things that we floated out were DBQs, professional development or content development, connecting with organizations, teachers connecting with organizations to get some more information and more learning. What else did we talk about? We talked about the archives crawl. And if teachers would be interested in that, that's also something. We mapping institutions, starting small with like one neighborhood or one school as a pilot program and see how, mapping something for them works so that we have a place that they could go to that's nearby, a place that could come to them, and a place that has something digital that's in the neighborhood. So we've talked about a lot. And we've talked about instead of grants, we can focus on those nearby resources. So I think the mapping actually goes into that, connects with that pretty well. I don't know. I don't know if I'm missing something.
I guess a question to the BPS folks for actionables on our end of things, not as a community and not as a group, but as individuals too, that we could also feed back to the rest of the commission. If we were to develop something in-house to then be able to place it onto something that's more of a compilation thing, is it a DPQ that we should be looking at? Is it really just focused mostly on digitizing and fundamental accessibility? Like, is there something that we should be looking toward creating or preparing to make it easier to get into a classroom or get to a teacher that we can then help the archival community or the history community kind of know that's where the demand is or the need is? Or is that too weird of a question?
No, it's not too weird of a question. It's a really good question. Again, I think I would defer to my colleagues, but my gut is saying like you should do the work that you're passionate about because that comes through. Like, so if you love digitizing to make it more accessible, great, that's a great place to start. DBQs, awesome. Like, let one of us support you in doing that work. I think something is better than waiting and doing nothing. And you all know the work so well. We're here to be thought partners. So if you want to talk more about what's the one thing that's going to have that high leverage work for students, let's have like a one-on-one conversation where we can just thought partner together and say, okay, yeah, this is a great first step for us.
Right.
You know?
I think in regards to the DBQs, we're really trying to step up the professional learning we've done in regards to that. There was a lot of like pause on that during post-pandemic, so we're really working on building teacher capacity to facilitate those in a real meaningful way. So that could be a place. We have another learning session coming in the spring. We're trying to build teacher leadership. So I'm just saying like that could be a really strong piece because we're really trying to work on getting teachers to build that muscle of doing DBQs, and not in a way of like handing out a packet and complete this, but like really delving into resources. And I think building out like a digitized catalog of what teachers could look at, I think sometimes like that brings it to life for kids. And I think that's really important. So I think those two pieces are really, like what Caitlin said, are really key to building out the experiences. Because a lot of times teachers have to like, how do I find this? Like, how do I get there? And how much time it takes. So I think any way we can give those things to them where they're like, I wish I had something that would really make, and I think that that's helpful. We try to make that the teacher's world is like really tough now. But how we can take those, and then when we have time with those materials, we can figure out how to make it accessible in our inclusion settings for our MLs and for our students with individualized learning plans. So
Thank you.
I have to run to another meeting. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments or ideas to both from the BPS team, but from the subcommittee?
I was just curious, for the DBQs, who comes up with the prompts? Is it like a pool that people can choose from, or do the teachers create them themselves?
I think, and again, I give you a qualified answer on this. I think we provide the training, like a colleague and I went down to one high school to talk about essential questions and posing it. And I emphasize the inquiry model. And so we try to give them the training and allow them to develop them themselves. And if they need assistance or they have references, they can apply that. And some individual high schools go above and beyond and map that out, which I've seen done. So the answer, there's no one answer to that, but we try to empower teachers to have that discretion. And it comes down to the question of what is a primary source? The primary source is really contingent on the question you're asking, right? So it can deal with historiography, it can deal with specific content, and you have to be able to kind of give the educator that discretion, but also have one foot in as the program director to say, if you need help, let me know, or talk to a colleague. I'll be a sound partner. But we try to give them that training. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to
And-
think of how we could be most helpful to you all, if we made like resource packets based on topic, and then the teachers can develop their prompts based on what is available, or if there's another
Great
way to
question,
do it.
Kayla, that's a great question. What I would say is consult the pacing guide that you should now have, as well as the Mass Social Science frameworks from 2018, and those topics. And right away, Boston is just peppered and saturated with primary sources. It's just dependent on where to look. And I just look forward to the adventure of discovering you all, getting in there. And when I discover these things, I'm like an 8-year-old at his first professional baseball game. Like I go in there. I mean, I'll never forget Peter Drummy in 1992 making me feel ashamed of myself because I Xeroxed the telegram Robert E. Lee received about John Brown attacking Harper's Ferry and being called to defend and rout him out. And he goes, John, what do you do with this stuff? I go, I hang it on my dorm wall. Like, what else would I do with it? And that gives you a sense of how big this is. And I want teachers to have that same type of enthusiasm. And that's why when it comes to the revolution, what do you have? I know the Mass Historical Society has hair clippings from George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And many people will say that's gross, but that's the way it was back then. And they'd send each other a memento. That's the type of stuff. Or when I worked in the conservation lab at the Mass Historical Society, and they talked about having brown bess muskets. And that was fascinating to me. And then they got into a debate, and I was like, this is really great, the conservation people, about no, New Hampshire has stacks of brown bess muskets stacked like wood. So I just think this stuff is great. And while you all talk about being locked in a basement, me, I want to unlock that basement. I want to see what's out there. I want to share that with students. I want to share that with kids. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic about this prospect. Okay.
Your enthusiasm is hard to match, John. I will say that for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dory, I think I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you, Hennessy. Hi, BPS colleagues. I'm Dory Klein. I'm at the Boston Public Library, and thank you so much. This has been just really illuminating and really helpful. Joe mentioned, and I think Hennessy mentioned, you know, we've been working on what is currently a spreadsheet, but will ultimately be a lightweight database that's hosted on the BPL website. That is a list of repositories, house museums, and other historical assets in Boston. And you know, one of the really helpful takeaways for me from today's conversation is that you all would find it helpful to have you know, an indicator that there are curricular materials or like outreach or field trip partners at a given space. And you know, so one of the things that we'll be including are like or that we're planning to include are filters and subject tags. So I just, you know, and knowing that this will be larger than the one pager that is topic specific, Caitlin, that you ideated, and that this will be a little further down the line before it's real. You know, am I missing anything in terms of thinking about what would be most useful to educators and to students, just to be visible in such a database?
Oh, that, you know what that made me think of? That totally made, I just got excited for a second. You know what we need to do, John? We need to help bridge this by like having like sort of a way that they can tag something by topic, by grade level, like where they think it fits in best. Like some primary resources will fit into like, you know, 7 different topics and for like, right. But like, what's that like home run? Gotta see this when you're talking about X, Y, or Z. So like we have to figure out how to like make the frameworks digestible, like so we can have easy tags for people, you know, because they shouldn't have to learn the frameworks, right? Like our colleagues here on this call shouldn't have to learn the 2018 mass frameworks unless that's like something really fun to do in the summer for you. And I totally applaud you if you think that way, but like we should make that digestible for you all so you can make the resources digestible for the teachers.
And to that end, like Caitlin and I have done with our colleagues, and while I think we're booked for the rest of the year, we can come down as groups, as one group of 5. We've visited different organizations to get to know the place, the resources, but we can come down individually as program directors, meet with you all, and kind of learn your resources, learn what you have, and almost translate the math social science frameworks. For instance, one of the partnerships we established was with the University of Hawaii, where we had a virtual call with a professor who's an expert on Oceania, and he said some of the best resources on Oceania are actually in New England because of the whaling trade. And so all of a sudden, we don't know what you have unless we come down there and talk about that and meet with you all. And that would be a huge opportunity. So what we can do is, if you want to have Caitlin and I, next time we meet, we can sit there and say, all right, we can create an order of what, and then we can take the emails you're sending me, and I can say, hey, while we all can't go, I can go or Caitlin can go, and we can learn more about this and have that informational interview and see how we can connect teachers with these resources, because one of the most obscure things you'll come across is Oceana, right? But these 7th grade teachers were so grateful that we did it and we connected this professor to them. It was wonderful. And if we can discover things in our own backyard, that's all the better. And Caitlin, thank you for triggering that in me. Thank you.
See, Dory, I think the project that BPL is building out is going to be really connected to that mapping project. If I can shift it and open it up a little, so we're hoping that mapping project, a teacher can go in, type in their school, and then they will be able to see in the area around them where BPL is, where repositories are, and where institutions are that they might be able to visit or that might be able to visit them. So they could, be very connected once that's rolled out. But
And Dory, the Leventhal Map Center is fascinating to me. I went to visit last year and I understand there's been some liaison shifts. Some people have moved on, some people have filled slots. But the overlay of a map of Boston 2024 to Boston 1924 is so eye-opening to me, and I think it's a treasure trove. So in Boston Public Library has always said, we're here for Boston Public Schools first. So John, keep in touch. And I have tried to maintain that and I value that. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, we love our friends at the Leventhal. They're doing wonderful, wonderful things. And TAC gang, I do have like questions and thoughts about our spreadsheet. I know we're also like approaching time, so I wonder if I can just request that next time we meet, we carve out some time, because I've been just been going through line by line and doing a little bit of data cleanup, but I also like have thoughts, questions, ideas for the whole group. So
it's great to have the feeling that BPS will use this, and like there's others besides us thinking that this could be useful. So it's going to really help kind of with the momentum of getting that project further along. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll make a note, sorry, so that we can, put it on our agenda. But it's 3:21. We end at 3:30. So I just want to thank Caitlin and John and Angela for setting this up. And this was really insightful and super helpful. And I will make sure that I send you guys these emails and that we continue these conversations. If you guys have any final thoughts, let me know. Speak now.
My final thoughts are, you're certainly welcome. I think that this is a great opportunity, and I want, as much as I know about Boston, having grown up close to Boston, not in Boston, as a youngster, I did attend school in Boston. And I will say that this is a boon of opportunities. And I want you to feel free to reach out to me if you feel like we haven't followed through. And I think I'm just grateful for this forum, and let's keep it up. And thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
thank you. Ditto to what you said, John. Awesome. So pleased to meet you all. And I will follow up with my next step of just creating that doc just as like a draft as an idea.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, thank you, guys. We don't have to adjourn. It's
We
fine.
don't? Okay.
No, we don't have quorum. It's
I wrote
fine.
down a script, Hennessy. I was all prepared.
I know. I'm sorry. All right, thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.